Good day everyone. MC Pretorius, Extension Manager for the Central Region, stationed in Nelspruit. Today I want to talk to you and to demonstrate to you the ideal and correct way of how to take a soil nematode and Phytophthora sample. First of all, we need to select the orchard. It's very important to select a visually healthy orchard. Any tree 3 years and older. Soils need to be moist, not excessively dry and not excessively wet. Randomly select 20 trees per 1,000 trees in an orchard. If that orchard is bigger than 1,000 trees, subdivide that orchard. Also collect additional samples from orchards where the rootstocks may differ or where the soil types differ. If one needs to collect a sample, it's very important to take the sample halfway between the trunk and the tree drip line. Remove the topsoil and all the weeds to about 2 centimeters and take the sample in that specific area. In the case of micro-irrigation, collect the sample in the micro-wettable area. In the case of drip irrigation, on the edge of the dripper wettable area. Don't take a nematode or Phytophthora sample underneath the dripper, as those conditions are unfavorable for these pathogens to survive. In the case of Phytophthora samples, we need to take a handful of soil from each of these different sub-sample trees that was identified, put it in a bucket and then thoroughly mix the soil, and then take a composite sample which would consist of about 2 handsful of soil, which is about 200 grams of soil. The soil and the root samples, in the case of nematodes, should be collected at a depth of 15 centimeters or where one would find the feeder roots. For nematode analysis, we need feeder roots as well. A handful of feeder roots should be collected from these 20 identified trees. Feeder roots should not be thicker than 2 millimeters. Place these roots in the bucket, mix it thoroughly, take 2 handsful of feeder roots, place it in a plastic bag as well as 2 handsful of soil. Don't separate the roots from the soil, as the roots will dry out before it would reach the laboratory. These samples should be placed in a plastic bag, which is marked clearly on the outside of the bag. Release most of the air from the bag and then close the bag properly. These bags should be kept cool, and a good practice would be to take a cardboard box and place these samples in the box while collecting the samples in the orchard. If one do leave a sample like that in direct sunlight, the sun would solarize the pathogens in the sample, and one would get a negative result in the laboratory. Information should not be placed inside the plastic bag, as that piece of paper would disintegrate by the time it will reach the laboratory. At the diagnostic center in Nelspruit, these samples can be analyzed. The information that the laboratory would need is the farm name, the tree age, the rootstock, orchard number, and then of course the grower's details. Good management practice for collecting routine samples, nematode and Phytophthora, would be to collect them only every 3rd year, not necessary to collect them more often. Specific sampling in a problem orchard, the best advice in that case would be to collect samples from trees that have not deteriorated to an advanced stage of decline. Take the samples from trees that only start to show declining symptoms. Take a sample at a few of these infected trees, place them in a bag separately. Also include healthy trees as a comparison of healthy and diseased trees in that specific orchard. The question always arises, when should I collect these samples? In the case, if you only want to select Phytophthora samples, that should be collected during the rainy season. In the case of nematodes, one can collect these samples throughout the year. It is advised to do these samples together the nematode and the Phytophthora samples. In replant situations, it is very important to collect a soil and root sample prior to removing water from that orchard or before soil preparation. The result of this would assist in future with management practices with regards to nematode and Phytophthora control as to what the status was in these replant orchards. If you need more information with regards to sampling methods as well as the address of the Diagnostic Center in Nelspruit, you can get the information on our website. Thank you.